You know that moment when the world seems to slow down, when someone says something so unexpected that your brain just stalls? That's what happened when Mark sat across from me at our kitchen table, eyes sunken, fingers tapping nervously, and said those words, asterisk, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it, asterisk. Before we go further, tell me, where are you watching from? I'd love to know where you're hearing this story from, because maybe sharing it with you will make it a little easier to breathe. Anyway, back to that night. It was a Thursday. Normal. Ordinary. I'd made pasta, the kind he liked, with too much garlic and a mountain of Parmesan. The apartment smelled like comfort and routine. But when he walked in, I knew something was off. His shoulders sagged, his usual smirk was gone, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. First, I thought he'd lost his job. Or maybe something happened to his mom again. She's been sick on and off. But no, this wasn't that kind of fear. This was guilt. Thick, heavy, suffocating guilt. I asked what was wrong, and that's when he dropped the bomb. I cheated on you. Just like that. 3 words that shattered 3 years. There wasn't a scream. Not right away. There wasn't a dramatic throwing of plates or tears. Just silence, the kind that hums in your ears like the world stopped making sound. I remember staring at him, my brain trying to wrap itself around the idea that the man I loved, the man who held me through anxiety attacks, the man who told me every morning that I was his favorite part of waking up, had been with someone else. When I finally found my voice, it was small. Why? He swallowed hard, looked down, then said the thing that, honestly, hurt more than the cheating itself. Because I felt like you didn't need me anymore. That was his reason. Not because he fell out of love, not because we'd been fighting, not because he was drunk or lonely. He cheated because I was doing well. Let that sink in. He said he felt insecure that I was thriving, that my job promotion, my independence, my confidence, made him feel less like the man in our relationship. So instead of talking to me about it, he found validation elsewhere. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it hadn't been so gutting. I asked who it was, and he said it was someone from work. Just once, he claimed, though I knew better than to believe that. When someone admits to one act of betrayal, there's usually more beneath the surface. I got up, went to the window, and stared out at the streetlights. Everything outside looked so normal. The hum of cars, the faint laughter from the cafe down the block, and yet inside me, everything had split open. The irony? I had spent months thinking I wasn't doing enough in the relationship. I thought maybe I was too distant, too focused on my career, not giving him enough reassurance. But the whole time, he'd been keeping this secret, letting me feel guilty while he carried the truth like a live grenade in his pocket. When he tried to reach for my hand, I pulled away. Don't, I said. My voice was calm, but I could feel my chest tightening. You don't get to touch me right now. He nodded, quiet, small, and then he said something that made my stomach turn. It didn't mean anything. I laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh that sounded foreign even to me. Then why does it feel like everything just fell apart? He didn't answer. For the next few minutes, neither of us spoke. I could hear the ticking of the clock in the kitchen, the whir of the refrigerator, even the faint sound of the upstairs neighbor walking around. It was like the world wanted to remind me that life goes on, even when yours has just imploded. I kept asking questions. When? Where? Did you use protection? Each one sharper, colder. He answered in fragments. A conference trip 2 months ago. A coworker he swore he barely knew. A night that just happened. I remember looking at him and thinking, asterisk, you didn't just cheat. You destroyed something sacred and then tried to dress it up as an accident. Asterisk. When I finally told him to leave, he didn't argue. He just gathered a few things. His phone, his jacket, and paused at the door like he wanted to say something else. But all he managed was, I'm sorry. I didn't respond. I just turned away and waited for the sound of the door closing behind him. The moment he was gone, the silence swallowed me whole. I sat on the couch, staring at the half-eaten dinner, at the 2 plates that would never be shared again. My body was shaking, but my mind was strangely clear. I realized that I'd spent years trying to build something with him, stability, trust, comfort. But I hadn't noticed that he was silently resenting the very things I was proud of. I cleaned the dishes in slow motion. I threw out the leftovers. I stripped the bed and threw the sheets into the washer, like that would somehow erase the contamination of what I just learned. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind replayed every moment, every "I love you," every late-night conversation, every compliment, now tainted by doubt. Was he already lying then? Was she in his mind while he was holding me? It's strange how betrayal makes you question your own reality. Suddenly, the past becomes a puzzle you can't solve. Every memory a clue that doesn't fit anymore. By morning, I decided not to text him. Not yet. I needed clarity, not confrontation. I went for a walk, no destination, just movement. The city felt different, heavier. I stopped at a coffee shop, the same one we used to go to on Sundays, and ordered my usual. The barista recognized me, smiled, asked if Mark was with me. I said no. It was the first time I said his name out loud since the confession, and it felt like chewing glass. That's when the anger started to replace the shock. I thought about all the times I'd been there for him, when he lost his job, when he doubted himself, when his dad passed away. I'd held him through every insecurity, every failure. And yet, the moment I started succeeding, he punished me for it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized his reason wasn't an excuse. It was a weapon. He didn't cheat because I was doing well. He cheated to remind himself that he could still have power, still be desired, still feel in control. When I got home, I found he'd texted, "I'll give you space. I just want you to know I'm not giving up on us." The audacity almost made me laugh again. Space, I thought. He gave himself all the space he wanted, between someone else's sheets. Still, I didn't reply. Couldn't. Over the next few days, I tried to function. I went to work, smiled through meetings, answered emails. But every time I looked at my phone, his name stared back from unread messages. He wrote long paragraphs about guilt, about therapy, about wanting to fix this. He even sent flowers. I didn't open the door to accept them. Then, one evening, curiosity got the better of me. I went through his social media, something I'd never done before. I wasn't looking for proof. I already had that. I was looking for context, for a sign of who this coworker was. It didn't take long. There she was, in the background of a company event photo, laughing at something he said. Hand on his shoulder. My stomach turned. I clicked her profile, scrolling through her posts. She'd shared motivational quotes, coffee pictures, and travel shots. Nothing unusual. But there was one caption that made my heart stop. "Some connections are worth the risk." It was dated 2 months ago, the same time as the conference trip. My hands shook as I closed the app. The dots were connecting themselves now, and I didn't like the picture they painted. That night, I called my best friend, Emma. I hadn't told her anything yet because saying it out loud felt too real. But as soon as she picked up, I broke down. Through tears, I told her everything. The confession, the reason, the lies. She listened quietly, then said something I didn't expect. "He's not sorry he cheated. He's sorry he lost control of the story." That line hit me like a slap, because she was right. His confession wasn't about honesty, it was about damage control. He'd only told me because he was afraid I'd find out another way. That realization flipped a switch in me. The sadness started turning into resolve. For years, I'd been the one holding everything together, his emotions, his family crises, our future plans. But this was on him. The next morning, I packed a small bag and drove to my parents' house 2 towns over. I didn't tell him. I just left a note that said, "You broke something you can't fix. Don't contact me." The drive was long and quiet. I cried a little. Then, somewhere around the halfway mark, I stopped crying. It was like my body finally ran out of sadness. When I got there, my mom opened the door, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug without asking a single question. Somehow, she just knew. That weekend, I stayed offline. No messages, no scrolling, no reminders. Just breathing. But on the 3rd day, he called. And against my better judgment, I answered. He sounded desperate, voice cracking as he apologized again, repeating how much he hated himself. I let him talk for a while, mostly because I wanted to hear if he'd say anything new, something that sounded like genuine remorse. He didn't. When I asked him what he planned to do differently, he said, "I'll never let my insecurities get in the way again." I sighed. "You don't even understand what you did wrong," I told him. "You made my success about you. You cheated not because of me, but because of what you couldn't face in yourself." There was silence. Then, he whispered, "You're right." But instead of feeling vindicated, I just felt tired. That's when I knew this wasn't something time could fix. Some fractures run too deep, not because of what happened, but because of what it revealed. I hung up and blocked his number. That night, I sat outside under the porch light, listening to crickets and thinking about how love can twist into something unrecognizable when insecurity poisons it. I wasn't sure what would come next. I just knew that the version of me who'd once believed in his promises was gone. The days after I blocked Mark felt strange, quiet but heavy. There's this emptiness that follows heartbreak, like your body hasn't caught up to the absence yet. I'd wake up expecting his text, expecting to hear his key in the door, and then I'd remember. That part of my life was over. For the first week, I stayed with my parents. My mom, bless her, made sure I ate, and my dad pretended not to notice the dark circles under my eyes. They didn't push. They just let me exist, bruised, but breathing. In the evenings, I'd sit on the porch, wrapped in an old blanket, scrolling through memories I wasn't ready to delete yet. Our photos, the trips, the birthdays. Every smile looked different now, like I could see the lie hiding behind it. It's strange how hindsight turns old happiness into evidence. One night, my best friend Emma came over with takeout and a bottle of cheap wine. She didn't say much at first. We just ate in silence until she looked at me and said, "You're handling this better than I expected." I laughed softly. "I'm not handling it. I'm just waiting for it to stop hurting." She nodded, understanding. "It will. But only when you stop trying to understand why he did it." That line stuck with me. Because she was right, I was still trying to make sense of it. To assign logic to something that came from cowardice, not reason. A few days later, I went back to my apartment. Walking in felt surreal. The air smelled the same. My books were still on the shelves, my mug still by the sink. But it wasn't home anymore. It was a memory I was living inside. The bed was the hardest part. I stripped it again, this time not because it was dirty, but because I refused to sleep in something that once belonged to us. I changed everything. Sheets, pillows, even the comforter. It was symbolic, but I needed newness. That night, I slept through till morning for the first time in weeks. The next few months blurred together. Healing is strange, it doesn't move in a straight line. Some days I felt strong, proud even. Other days, I'd see a random man wearing Mark's cologne and my chest would tighten. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into projects, stayed late, volunteered for presentations. It wasn't about running from the pain. It was about reminding myself that I still had control over something. Then one afternoon, months later, I got an email. The subject line was his name. For a second, my pulse stopped. I opened it hesitantly. "Hey, I know you said not to contact you, but I wanted to apologize properly. I've been in therapy. I've been trying to figure out why I did what I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say I'm sorry again, and that I'm proud of you. You always deserved better than me." No dramatic begging this time. No promises. Just words. I read it twice. Then I closed it. I didn't delete it, but I didn't reply either. There was nothing left to say. It's funny, closure doesn't come from an apology. It comes from realizing you no longer need one. A week later, I ran into someone unexpected, the coworker. The woman. It happened at a grocery store of all places. I was in the produce section when I heard someone say my name. I turned, and there she was, smaller than I remembered from her photos. Her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. For a long second, neither of us spoke. Then she said quietly, "Can we talk?" I should have said no. Every instinct told me to walk away. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe the need to finally close the loop, made me nod. We stepped outside, stood by the parking lot under the dull afternoon light. She looked nervous, her hands fidgeting with her keys. "I didn't know about you," she blurted out. "Not at first. He said you were on a break." I almost laughed. Of course he did. "When did you find out?" I asked. "After," she said softly. "He told me a few weeks later. Said it was a mistake and that he was trying to fix things with you. I ended it then." There was a pause. She looked at me like she wanted forgiveness. I didn't owe her that. But I also didn't have hatred left to give. "I'm not angry at you," I said. "I'm done being angry in general." She nodded, visibly relieved. "I just wanted you to know that he wasn't lying when he said it wasn't about you. He was lost." Lost. That word again. Everyone keeps calling selfishness something poetic. Lost. Confused. Insecure. But the truth is simpler, he made a choice. Still, I thanked her for saying what she did. We parted with an awkward nod. Two women connected by a wound neither of us asked for. That night I felt lighter. Not because of her words, but because I realized I didn't need to carry his guilt anymore. It wasn't mine. After that day, something shifted in me. The bitterness faded, replaced by a quiet understanding of my own strength. I started journaling again, not about him, but about me. My goals, my feelings, my healing. I signed up for a pottery class, took solo walks, even planned a short trip by myself. Somewhere along the way, I started smiling again. Not forced smiles for coworkers or polite ones for family. Real ones. Then one evening, out of nowhere, I got a message from Emma. "You won't believe who's asking about you." I didn't even have to ask. I just replied, "Tell him not to." She sent back a laughing emoji, followed by, "Already did." And that was that. Months turned into a year. Life, as it always does, moved on. I changed jobs, met new people, learned to enjoy my own company. Every now and then, I'd catch myself remembering something small. The way he used to hum while cooking or how he'd always steal the blanket. But it didn't hurt anymore. It just existed. That's how healing sneaks up on you. You don't wake up one morning completely fine. It happens quietly, in small, ordinary moments when you realize the pain has turned into distance. One of those moments came when I was out with friends, and someone asked if I'd ever been in love. I thought about it for a second, then said, "Yes." And it taught me exactly what I won't tolerate again. Everyone laughed. But I meant it. Because that's the thing. Pain can destroy you or it can refine you. Can harden your heart or make it wiser. I chose the latter. A few months after that, I got an invitation to a mutual friend's wedding. Mark would be there. I knew it before I even opened the message. I hesitated. Should I go? Did I want to see him? But then I realized, avoiding him meant he still had power. Facing him meant I'd finally reclaimed it. So I went. When I arrived, I spotted him across the venue almost immediately. He looked older somehow. Not in age, but in energy. When our eyes met, he froze. I gave a polite nod, nothing more. Later that night, as people danced and laughed, he approached me. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." There was an awkward pause. Then he smiled, a small, tentative smile. "You look good." "Thanks," I said simply. We stood there. Two people who once shared everything and now shared nothing but silence. He started to say something, then stopped. I could see the regret in his eyes, the kind that lingers long after the apologies are spent. Before he could speak again, I said, "I'm glad you're getting help. I mean that, but this," I gestured between us, "this chapter's closed." He nodded. "I know." And for the first time, I believed him. As I walked away, I felt this strange calm. Not triumph, not bitterness, just peace. The kind that comes when you've accepted that some people are lessons, not lifetimes. The rest of the night was actually fun. I laughed, danced, talked to people I hadn't seen in ages. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't the girl who'd been cheated on. I was just me. Driving home later, I rolled the windows down. The night air was cool. The city lights flickered past, and a song came on the radio, one that used to be ours. But this time it didn't sting. It just sounded like background noise. When I got home, I stood in front of the mirror for a while. I didn't look different, But I felt different. Stronger. Softer. Free. I realized something important that night. Closure doesn't always come from a conversation or an apology. Sometimes, it comes from realizing you've already forgiven yourself for staying too long